Hello, my name is Chanel. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Basically, I just want to tell you guys a little about how I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. I started this YouTube channel, number one, because I wanted to spread awareness about Hodgkin's lymphoma. It affects predominantly young people aged 17 to 30, and it doesn't have any basis on genetic makeup. So basically, anyone can get it, and it doesn't mean that because you have it, you have cancer in your family. Like, doesn't really matter. And also, the reason why I came out and I told everyone about my diagnosis on Instagram is because I didn't want to live in kind of like a shame. It's already hard enough what I'm going through and what so many others go through. And I learned that basically, like, so many people reach out to me offering me their advice, and I offered them my advice. And you could have a great support system. I do, and I have an amazing family, but there's nothing like talking to somebody that's actually been through what you're going through. And I know that it's helped me a lot. And basically, like, the reason why I made this YouTube channel is because I realized that there's so much more to be done, and like to let people know that they're not alone. No matter what you're going through, like, know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. And when I was diagnosed, I went on YouTube, and like, this kind of prepped me for what was to come. Obviously, not everyone's experience is the same, but it just made me have that like courage and bravery going into my first treatment. And like, I really hope that I could do the same for other people. Another reason why I made this YouTube channel, because it helps me and it gives me something to do. Well, right now it is around March 8th, I think. And basically, we're going through a pandemic right now, and I haven't left the house in a couple of days, so this is giving me a little project to do. So yeah, the main reason why I made this YouTube channel is because I was so touched by everyone that reached out to me on Instagram. Like, I wasn't expecting that overwhelming support, and it encouraged me to start this YouTube channel because I want to be there for people that are going through the same thing as me, because I know that how hard it could be. It's very, very scary. I never thought that I would be in this situation. I never thought that I would have cancer. I used to cry when I seen movies with people that had no hair, and like, I was like, I really hope that like that never happens to me or anyone in my family. But then it happened, and it's kind of like, it's really hard to deal with, to be honest. In this video, I'm gonna talk to you about basically everything leading up to my diagnosis. I was diagnosed on February 13th, 2020, but I started experiencing symptoms maybe March 2019. So I had been getting sick for a while, starting in March 2019, basically. I was a student, a college student, and working at the same time. So basically, I had like a very active lifestyle. I played basketball before all of this. Like, I'm very physically inclined, or I was very physically inclined, basically before I started getting sick. Then I realized that I had literally like no energy. Like, I would go to school in the morning around 8 a.m. and by 11 a.m. I was completely exhausted. Like, no matter how much sleep I got, I can never feel awake and alert, and it was just very, very alarming. So I didn't really think anything of it, but I just thought maybe I need to work out more. Maybe it's because like I'm always in like this fast-paced lifestyle, school, work, like maybe I'm not eating enough, not getting like the right nutrients or something like that. So I kind of like pushed it away a little bit. And then around June 2019, basically I took out my summer clothes because I live in Canada. So, I mean, it only starts to get warm only around, I would say, June, July. So I took out my summer clothes and I started like trying them on, and I realized that they were all just like falling off of me. Like, I had lost so much weight, but I didn't really notice. And I'm like naturally slim, so sometimes it's a little bit hard for me to realize like the difference. But I mean, I was already slim, and I took like a size 3, and now my clothes were just falling off of me, and I just had a little bit of a breakdown in that moment. I kind of looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, wow, like I don't feel like myself right now. I don't feel good. I feel tired. I feel like the energy is being just sucked out of me. So basically I called my grandmother, I called my mom, and I just broke down to them. I started crying. I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I really don't know what's wrong with me. Like, I need to see a doctor, because at the time I didn't have a family doctor, which is like really important, by the way. Everyone should have a family doctor. And as well, like, don't only settle for one opinion, and I'll tell you why. So basically, my grandmother made an appointment with a family doctor that she sees, and that my mom sees, and my brother and my sister. This is the first time I had ever seen him. So she made an appointment for me. I went down and I seen him. I told him how I was feeling, basically, like I had no energy, I was losing weight. I was still eating normally, like how I usually eat, but it seemed that I kept on losing weight, like no matter what I did. Like, I don't understand why I was losing weight, but I was hoping that he would help me, you know? And anyways, so he ordered a bunch of blood tests. I went to go do the blood test, and then after I had a follow-up appointment with the same doctor, I went in, I waited like so long to see him. I was so frustrated, but anyway, I got into his office and he told me, he's like looking at my levels, kind of like, yeah, so I don't really see anything really that's alarming or anything that you should be worried about. And I was like, are you sure about that? Because I do not feel right. I don't feel right. Like, there's something that's wrong. And then he's like, well, your white blood cell count is a little high, but it's nothing that you should worry about. It's nothing that you should worry about. Like, Joe, we'll monitor it, but I think that you just need to eat more, because maybe you're not eating enough, and just keep on eating and eating and eating if you want to put on weight, you know? And I was like, my white blood cell count is a little high. Isn't that something that I should be worried about? Usually when your white blood cell count is high, that usually means that there's something wrong, like you're trying to fight something off, like whether it's an infection or maybe cancer, for example, you know? So that was in June, by the way. So anyways, I took that with me. I Googled white blood cell count. I realized that maybe I could be possibly fighting something, but I didn't know what it was. Anyways, so after this, basically, I kind of just like dealt with like the exhaustion and everything. Anyways, I was going away for a month and a half to Croatia and Greece on a long vacation. So I went on this vacation. I felt really, really good. Maybe it was because of the sun and the sea and just like the much needed relaxation. So I told myself, maybe this is what I needed. Maybe I needed like this relaxation time for myself. Maybe that's why I'm losing weight maybe it's like stress and anxiety and everything from school and work. But then on vacation, I started like itching like so uncontrollably, like my lower legs. I couldn't stop itching, and it wasn't like in a particular place really. It was like everywhere, and I was like ripping my skin apart. So, but I thought that maybe it was because of the sun, you know. Maybe I was a little bit overcooking in the sun. Maybe I was having like a little reaction in the sun. Anyway, that was the third symptom. So exhaustion, weight loss, and like uncontrollable itch. This uncontrollable itch. Anyway, my vacation went on. I basically stayed there for a month and a half. I was relaxing. I felt like I had like regained a little bit of energy. It's because I wasn't really using much energy. I mean, all I was doing was sitting in a beach chair, tanning all day, maybe swimming. I was eating very, very well. The food out there is like super good, super healthy. You know, I was on like a Mediterranean diet. So anyway, life was good. Life was good besides that itchiness. And then I came back to Montreal, came back, and, you know, all the symptoms started again. Basically, the weight loss kept on happening. I realized because the new shorts that I had bought in the beginning of the summer now they were a little bit loose on me, and they were like size 0. I was literally turning into skin and bones. That's it. Like, anyway, so I just started to become like super depressed. Honestly, I didn't like what I seen in the mirror. I would look at myself and I just look like sunken in, unhealthy. I could never get enough sleep. Like I was always yawning. Like I would walk up a couple flights of stairs and I'd be like, have to catch my breath. I'd have to like stop and be like, before I fainted and I fell on the floor. Like it was becoming really, really, really crazy. But I took the advice of my doctor and I said, no, it must be nothing. Like it must be like I'm just tired. I'm just exhausted. So this was about maybe now it was around September-ish, September. And then one night I went to sleep and I woke up and my bed was completely drenched in my own sweat. When I say, I'm not saying like a little bit of damp, a little bit of sweat. I could have wrung my sheet out in sweat. Like that's how much I was sweating in my sleep. So that went away. It wasn't every night, but basically this was a new symptom that is very common in Hodgkins lymphoma. It's night sweats. So there you go. I started developing night sweats, the weight loss, the exhaustion, and the itchiness. So I mean, there were like 4 symptoms there now. Anyway, I just continued to live my life. I didn't really like to go outside anymore. Like I didn't feel comfortable like with who I was anymore. Like people started to notice that, like my mom and my grandmother, my whole family, like when they would hug me, they would be like, Chanel, you feel really skinny. Like, are you okay? Like, you know, like people were starting to think that I was on drugs and I was, you know, taking drugs and stuff, because like that was the only explanation of how I looked, how I was feeling. I was never happy. I was really, really down. My schoolwork started to suffer. Like I stopped going to school. I didn't even go to school. Like I didn't tell my family that I had basically dropped out of school because I couldn't even get myself up in the morning. I couldn't even motivate myself anymore. I couldn't even motivate myself anymore to do my schoolwork. I just had nothing left inside of me. And now, okay, so it's around December now. The night sweats come back. The night sweats, I think, were probably the worst symptom that I had. It was really, really, really bad. Like, I would wake up and I would be completely drenched. I would be itchy. I'd wake up and I'd be like, oh my God, like, oh my God, like, what is life? Like, is this my life now? Is this how my life is gonna be? I went to IKEA, I changed my sheets, I changed my duvet. I thought maybe, okay, maybe my duvet is a little bit too heavy, you know? So I changed everything and I was like, yes, I know that this is gonna help. I know that maybe my duvet is a little bit too heavy, too hot, you know? And anyway, so I changed it. And the same thing happened again. Like, I literally had to get a new mattress because my mattress was completely finished. From December to up to when I was diagnosed, I was sweating every single night. I had to change my sheets every single night. Anyway, so we're approaching a new year, 2020. I was thinking that it was going to be a good year, but there's still hope anyway. On December 31st, I think it was, yeah, the New Year's Eve, I got so sick. Like, I had so much congestion. I was sneezing, coughing, like extremely, extremely, extremely like tired. Like, I caught like the worst cold ever. And right on like before New Year's, I basically had plans and everything like that, and I just ended up like basically staying in bed for 2 days. I didn't move. I didn't really want to do anything. I was completely sick. Like, I think I went through maybe like 3 boxes of Kleenex because of how much like was coming out. And I realized that like usually when I get sick, I recover very fast. Like, my whole life, I didn't really get sick that much. Like, I would get like a cold every other year, but I never got sick like how I got sick on the 31st. I never had been sick like that in like a really, really long time. And this cold, it was not going away. Along with the fever and the night sweats and the weight loss, the exhaustion, everything, now I was sick. And it took me around 3 weeks to get better. So now we're approaching basically when I got diagnosed. So I had been sick for 3 weeks. Finally, it was going away, but I felt like there was still like some leftover congestion in my chest. Like, I thought maybe it was bronchitis or something like that, but I felt a lot of like pressure, basically like in my throat, in my chest. I developed like a little bit of a wheezing. Like, so whenever I breathed, like, on the inhale and on the exhale, I would hear like a little, like, you know, like just like really wheezing a lot. And I could barely breathe. I mean, talking would be exhausting for me. Talking to people started to become a workout for me. Yeah, it was really, really, really scary. And I think back to like that time and I'm just like, I'm really sad that that time is over, you know, like, even though I'm going through chemotherapy right now and I have to deal with exhaustion sometimes, all those symptoms that I was feeling for such a long time, like, there's nothing worse than that. Like, I'll be happy to go through chemo, like, and all of those symptoms are basically getting like cut off. Like, I don't sweat anymore. I don't get fever anymore, you know, like, I'm really grateful that this cancer is very, very treatable through 6 months of chemotherapy, and, you know, that I'm doing what I have to do to get rid of it. Anyways, back to, I basically, yeah, so I was wheezing. And then I was like, okay, this is really weird. This is really, 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 really weird. I was planning on going to the clinic the following, maybe the one on my day off. So my day off was in two days from when I developed my wheezing. The next day, I woke up and I had like a bump on my collarbone. I realized it right away. Like, I looked in the mirror and I was like, that's weird. I have a bump on my neck. You know, like, anyways. So now I really had to go to the clinic. So I basically went to the clinic the next morning. The next morning, yeah. But the night before I went to the clinic, I had the worst night ever. Like, I woke up and I checked my temperature because I was so hot. I think it was reaching around 40 degrees. Like, that's how much fever I had. I had like a high grade fever. So I basically called my dad, because my dad's a doctor in the States, and he told me to take some Tylenol or something to get my temperature down, and to drink some water and don't go back to sleep until like my temperature goes down. So that's what I did. I woke up in the morning around 7 o'clock and I was the first one in line for the walk-in clinic. So I go see the doctor. I was thinking that I was going to work after. Like, I literally had no plans of going anywhere. Like, I was planning on getting maybe some medication for bronchitis or antibiotics or something, so that basically like this goes away. So I went to the clinic the next day, and I was one of the first ones there at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I waited to see a doctor. I was the first one to see the doctor. I went into the doctor's office and I basically explained to him, like, I showed him the lump here. So that already was like very suspicious for him. I didn't know that at the time, of course, because I didn't really know much about Hodgkin's lymphoma, and the lymph node, the swollen lymph node on my neck, I had no idea that would basically be related, like cancer related. So he looked at that. He asked me, how are you feeling right now? Like, are you feeling really tired? And I was like, yes, I feel exhausted. I've been feeling exhausted for months, almost a year now. I've been exhausted. I have night sweats, completely drenching night sweats, shortness of breath. Like, then he checked my wheezing. So I was like a little whistle in and out, and he was like, okay, so this is what's gonna happen. Basically, I don't have anything to confirm this right now, but what you have is very serious. I know that there's something wrong with you. And he wrote me up a letter for my work, first of all, and he's like, you are off for at least 2 weeks. You're not going anywhere. You're not going to work. And then in my head, I was like, okay, this is kind of serious, because I mean, he's sending me to the ER and he's giving me 2 weeks off of work. I thought I was coming in for bronchitis and getting antibiotics, but it looks like that's not the case, you know. So I started to freak out a little bit. I tried to read what he wrote. He sent me with a letter to like a note kind of to the ER. And I kind of was like trying to read it, but you know, doctor's writing is really hard to understand. But I was able to make out like Hodgkins with a question mark. So basically he thought that I had this Hodgkins. Before going to the ER, I just stopped for a coffee at Starbucks, and I sat down and I Googled Hodgkin's lymphoma and Hodgkin's, and I was like, oh my God, this is cancer. Like, he thinks that I have cancer. I don't have cancer. Come on, like, I have bronchitis. I know I have bronchitis, you know? Like, I didn't believe what he wrote. And I didn't believe for a second that I had cancer, honestly. I thought that maybe he was just blowing this whole thing out of proportion. Anyways, so I got to the ER. I handed them what the doctor wrote to give them, and I was waiting in the ER maybe for like 20 minutes. They processed me so fast. The ER was packed with really sick people, and I was just sitting there looking around like at all these sick people, and they called my name before everyone. Like, it was starting to become a little bit alarming at that point, because I was like, why am I going before all these people? Like, they need help way more than I do, you know? So basically, like, I was like, why is this happening to me, you know? So they put me in the examination room. I changed my clothes. I changed into like the medical robe, and I'm waiting there. And I call my mom and I tell her, you know, like, I'm in the ER now. They sent me to the ER, and I don't know why, but I'm going to find out right now. So the doctor comes in, and he's asking me again, basically like the other doctor, like, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? Like, tell me a little bit about what you're going through and what you've been going through for the past year. And I told him exactly what I told the other doctor, you know, like, I'm tired, have this bump on my neck now, night sweats, weight loss. Like, I had lost maybe 15 pounds by then. I was 130, and at this point, when I went into the ER, I was 115. Like, in 1 year, I had lost 15 pounds. And for a slim girl, like, that's a lot of weight, you know? And anyway, so he ordered at this point, what was it? I went to go take an x-ray, basically. So, so I go take the x-ray. I come back, and he gets the results of the x-ray, and then basically he tells me, I think he was just like a general ER doctor. He basically told me, he's like, there is something, a mass. I don't know exactly what it is, but there's a very large mass in your throat, in your chest, and it's taking up a lot of space in your chest, you know. I really wish you the very, 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 very best, but I'm gonna have to send the specialist in, so the hematologist and the oncologist. So in my head, I was like, oh my God, now they're sending the specialist in, and I knew that hematology is, you know, medicine of blood, and oncology, of course, is the medicine of cancer. So I was kind of like freaking out a little bit at that point. Like, I was like, okay, there's something in my chest. This is crazy. It explained a lot, because like I felt like I couldn't breathe. So now I'm picturing this big nasty mass in my chest, and I'm just like, wow. So all the shit that I've been feeling for like this long, basically, there's a reason for it. And anyway, they sent in the hematologist and the oncologist, basically like a little team of doctors, and they came and talked to me. Of course, I explained everything all over to them, and you know, they took a chair, and they sat down, and they're like, look, you're gonna get through this, don't worry, but I'm just telling you that the mass in your chest, the large mass in your chest, and the swollen lymph node on your neck, basically, we think that you have Hodgkins lymphoma. It's a type of cancer. We're gonna keep you here for a day or two, and we're gonna run all kinds of tests on you to make sure that what we think is actually what is going down, you know. We're going to find out what's wrong with you. We're going to find out and we're going to make a solution for you. Yeah, so basically the next 2 days was followed by countless blood tests. The next step was to get a CAT scan. So basically I went for a CAT scan. I had countless blood tests. I stayed overnight in the hospital. I was woken up like every 2 hours for different blood tests. Like different doctors were coming to see me, and the one thing that I really remember like so clearly is their concern, and like how concerned they were and how like patient and gentle they were. It was almost like alarming in itself, because like it was almost like they felt like pity for me, like what I was about to go through. But in my head, I still hadn't accepted that I had cancer. Like they told me that they think that I have cancer, but I was still hopeful that they were going to be wrong, you know? Like at this point, my experience with doctors was not that great. I mean, I didn't get any information from when I went to go check when something was wrong with me the first time. So basically, in my head, I was like, oh, well, they're probably going to be wrong again. I don't think that anything of it, you know, like I'm going to stay, obviously. I have to stay in the ER, but I'm praying for the best, you know. I was remaining positive, and I really didn't think at this point. I don't know if I was just in shock, but at this point, I really didn't believe that I had cancer. I still didn't believe it. So yeah, they were coming in and out and basically taking blood tests like every 2 hours. Like as soon as I would try to like fall asleep, like another doctor was waking me up, taking my temperature, which was really high, by the way, and just checking up on me, seeing if I'm okay. The next morning, I had a biopsy on my lymph node. So basically, like it's like a minor procedure. They had to like stick a needle inside of my lymph node and like take out samples of this lymph node to test it, to see if it was in fact cancerous. And this really would give me like the positive answer of, you know, if I actually have Hodgkins lymphoma or not. Like the x-rays were pointing towards, yes, I had it. The lymph node, having the lymph node was pointing towards, yes, you have lymphoma. The CAT scan, yes, you have lymphoma. But this biopsy was going to give me the ultimate result of if I have Hodgkin's lymphoma or not. And of course, I had to wait for that result for like a week and a half. So after the biopsy, I had a couple more tests, and they kept me for observation just until they were okay to send me home. Before I left, the doctor, the head hematologist and oncologist, my doctor now actually, came to see me again before leaving, and this kind of made me really scared what she was about to say. So she came down, and she sat down with me. She looked me in the eye and she said, look, are you planning on having a family? Are you planning on having kids in the future? And I said, of course, yes, I'm planning on having a family in the future. Right now, I don't have a significant other, but I'm definitely planning on having a child in the future, or 2 or 3. But she said, look, I'm going to have the fertility clinic contact you, because if in fact you do have Hodgkin's lymphoma and you will need chemotherapy, it could cause infertility, and I don't want that for you. So I'm going to make you have contact with the fertility clinic so that you could start your preservation of your eggs. And when she said that, I was just like, oh my God, like this is like way too much. Like it was almost like she was telling me that she knew that I had Hodgkin's lymphoma, but we just needed to wait for the biopsy results. But she was pretty much 100% sure that this is what I had. So that was kind of like really, 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 really scary for me. Like, I was just like, oh my God, you know, this is happening. It all hit me, and it was just like, yeah. So I left the hospital and I went to my mom's house just to stay with her for the weekend, basically, after being in the hospital for 2 days. And the next morning, the fertility clinic called me to schedule an appointment for the next day. And this was a Saturday that they called me. They wanted me to come in on Sunday. Like, I didn't even know that they were open on those kind of days. But anyways, they really wanted me to come in as fast as possible because basically they wanted to get the fertility treatment started so that it wouldn't delay any other treatment that I might have. But at this point, I still had a little bit of hope that it wasn't lymphoma. I don't know why, but at this point, I think, like I said before, I was just in such shock, and I just didn't believe that this was happening to me. I couldn't accept it. Like, I hadn't fully accepted it, especially since the biopsy results were not in yet. Anyway, so I went to the fertility clinic on Monday just to get information about the treatment that I might not have to take. But really, I ended up having to do my fertility treatment because obviously I was in fact diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. The next week, I had an appointment with my doctor. I went with my mom and my aunts, and the doctor sat us down and she basically said, you know, you have stage 2B Hodgkin's lymphoma. And my mom started crying so much, and my aunt was, you know, pretty sad too. I was in complete shock. And then she kept on going, and she explained that I would need 6 months of chemotherapy. And I asked, I was like, so I won't be able to go to school or work? She's like, no, 100% no. You're not to do anything for the next 8 months. And I was like, oh my God. Then I started crying, and everybody was crying. I pulled myself together really fast because I wanted to be strong for my mom because she was just complete mess. So basically, yeah, I found out that I had stage 2BX Hodgkin's lymphoma. BX stands for, basically B is if you have symptoms, if you had symptoms. So I had like all of the symptoms. It makes it a little bit worse than just a regular stage 2. And stage 2BX, the X means that it's bulky, which means that it's a large mass, and it took up a lot of my chest. And then she showed me the picture of the X-ray that I took when I was in the ER. I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, I was in shock. Basically, like, you know, an X-ray, it should be mostly black. The area of your lung should mostly be black, you know. Mine, my tumor was so large that it made basically all my lungs, like all of it was taken up, but it was all white. I was like, oh, I was like, so this is the devil that has been sucking up all of my energy, all, just everything I had for the past year. This is the reason why. So like now I just imagining it shrinking and shrinking. I'm just imagining it shrinking and shrinking every time. It's like I almost feel it shrinking and shrinking. I'm like, that makes me feel so much better. I know chemotherapy, and I'll make another video about that, about my type of chemotherapy and how I've been feeling on chemotherapy and etc. But one way that I get myself through treatment is basically telling myself that every time I go to chemotherapy, and like all the fatigue that I feel and everything like that, like it's because that devil is shrinking every single time, every dying, and that's how I just keep myself strong, and I tell myself that everything is going to be okay. And like, for anybody that's going through this, like, you should tell yourself the same thing. Even though this is very, very hard, like, eventually you're going to feel better. Like, my symptoms, they already have gone away. I started gaining a little bit more weight now. I don't feel like completely exhausted, only after chemo sometimes, but generally I actually have more energy now going through chemo than I did for the past year. And obviously I don't want to speak for everyone, because like I said, everyone's experience is completely different. But with the amount of symptoms that I had, I basically felt better now going through chemotherapy than I felt like for the past year, like I said. So I could breathe, you know. Yeah, but basically that's my story, and I'll make another video about like chemotherapy, a day in the life, you know. But for right now, I just wanted to tell you basically what I've been going through for the past year. And now I do still have Hodgkin's lymphoma, but it's slowly going away. So I just want to tell everyone to keep positive and keep smiling, and you know, I'm fine. I have less hair now, but I'm gonna be okay. So yeah, that's the important thing.